So let's talk about some of the most common mistakes that people make when they go in creating goals. Okay. Now, common mistake number one is most people create very vague, and I call them descriptive goals. Okay. They create very vague or descriptive goals, and that's all they ever do. Right. So I might ask somebody, hey, what are your goals? What do you want to accomplish? Okay. They say, oh, I just want to lose weight. I want to tone up. I want to firm up. I want to lose some inches in my waist. I want to feel better about myself, and I want to have more energy, right? These are very vague and very descriptive goals. Now, it's important to have descriptive goals, but a lot of people just stop there. Okay. Now, we've all heard of the SMART goals, right? Specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely, right? They all have to have a time on it. So a lot of people do not create SMART goals. They just say what they want. Okay. And there is a place, like I said, for descriptive goals. And so common mistake number one is not really creating SMART goals and only staying with descriptive goals. Okay. Common mistake number two is not writing your goals down. Okay. If you cannot see it and you are not writing it down, or you're not inputting it into a computer, or maybe your coach isn't inputting into a computer, or whatever it is, okay, then the likelihood of you achieving those goals isn't very likely at all. Okay. There is a research study out there, and you guys can go look for it, of the likelihood of somebody achieving their goals if they write down their goals. When they write it down, the likelihood just goes through the roof. Okay. So not writing down their goals is another common mistake. Okay. Common mistake number three is people not setting realistic goals. Okay. I hear all the time. In fact, I just had somebody not too long ago that came into me and said that they wanted to lose, it was like 40 pounds of fat that they were trying to lose, and they were trying to do it in less than 6 months. Okay. Now, that that can happen. Okay. And it's not so much unrealistic, but he added the fact that he also wanted to live a healthy lifestyle, and he didn't want to be restricted from food. And so that is a very unrealistic goal when you say, I want to lose this massive amount of fat, but I want to do it to where I'm able to go on vacation and I'm not restricted and I don't have to count calories and I can just live free. Okay. That's not very realistic at all. Okay. And as we talked about before, those are two different goals, right? If you want to lose fat, that's one goal. If you want to learn to make it a lifestyle, that's a completely different goal. Okay. There are two different ways to go about doing those. Okay. And so a lot of people don't create realistic goals. Okay. They have these things that it's out of this world. There's no way it's going to happen. So they're just setting themselves up for failure. Now, that's if they even create, a real goal. Okay. Number four, common mistake is people don't create measurable goals. Okay. Like, how can you say, hey, I want more energy? Okay. How do you measure that? Okay. You need to know how to be able to measure that, right? I want to feel better. Well, how do you measure that? Okay. If you don't measure it and it just stays in that description form, it's going to be really hard to know if you really ever achieved it or not. Okay. I'll tell you a funny story. Just recently, I started working with a client, and she went through her first month of training with me. And every client that I have, we do a goal assessment, and I always do. I understand what direction that they want to go, and so I let them purposely write down very generic goals. Okay, so she wrote very generic goals. I want to lose weight, I want to tone up, I want to firm, things like that. But she didn't really write any measurable goals. Okay. So then what happens is she comes in the next month and she does phenomenal. Okay. She loses, I don't know, 3 or 4 pounds of fat. She gains about a pound of muscle, and she's eating more food than she's ever eaten in her life. Okay. And so, I was like, man, you should be really happy right now. And she was just not sure how to feel. And I said, well, let's pull up your assessment and let's look at what you said your goals were. And then it said, I want to lose fat and I want to gain muscle, right? That was what her goals said. And I said, hey, listen, you achieved your goals. You lost fat and you gained muscle. So maybe we should stop working together today. Okay. And she's like, well, no, I have more to go. I have more to go. And I was like, well, that's why I'm having this conversation, because even though you wrote these goals and you said you wanted to accomplish this, it wasn't good enough. So if you don't have measurable goals, number one, you'll achieve those goals because they're kind of vague, right? You'll achieve them, but you won't really be happy when you're there, or you'll achieve them and you won't really know you are there because you didn't really write it down of where you want it to be. Okay. So you got to make sure you create measurable goals. It's extremely important. Now, if she would have said, hey, Aaron, I want to lose 10 pounds of fat and I want to gain 10 pounds of muscle. Okay. She would have came in month one and she would have saw, hey, I lost 3 pounds of fat. Now I'm not where I need to be, but I know I'm on the right track. Okay. But because she didn't create those measurable goals, according to the way she wrote it, she accomplished her goals and she should stop working with me. But in her heart, she knew that that's not really where she wanted to be. So we had to sit down and we say, okay, let's create these measurable goals. Where are you really trying to be with fat mass? Where are you really trying to be with muscle mass? And then we sat down and really created those very specific measurable goals. Okay. All right, cool. Now, creating crystal clear goals is what this is all about. Okay. Now, here's the thing. If you don't create crystal clear goals, okay, measurable, realistic, attainable, right, all of that stuff, if you do not get crystal clear on exactly what you're creating, you literally have no purpose. You have no reason to push through. Okay. You don't even know why you're doing it. You're just losing it. You're just doing it to lose weight. Okay. But when you can create a super crystal clear goal, you know exactly, hey, I'm trying to lose 15 pounds of fat. I'm trying to lose 20 pounds of fat, whatever the thing is. Okay. If you can really create that crystal clear goal, okay, when times get tough, it is so much easier to bust through those barriers. It is so much easier to remember, hey, this is my purpose. This is my goal. This is why I'm doing this. Okay. If you create vague and general goals, you will have very lackluster effort to break through your barriers. Okay. Your goal setting process is what's allowing you, it's setting you up to bust through barriers when times get tough throughout your journey, because it will get tough throughout your journey. And if you just have, oh, I just want to lose weight. Oh, I just want to feel better. Those aren't strong enough. Those don't inspire you to continue to move forward. Okay. So you've got to create these super crystal clear goals. You've got to go through this process. Okay. Now, one of the other common mistakes that I see people make is not creating a deadline. Okay. Or if they do create a deadline, it becomes this moving target. Okay. They might say, hey, my deadline is, summertime, right? At summertime, I want to look like this, right? It's fall's coming up. So it's like, oh, my deadline is Halloween. Okay. And they may create a deadline. Okay. But sometimes they'll like, oh, I didn't really work out hard this month. So let me push it back another month. And let's just say Thanksgiving, right? And then, oh, Thanksgiving was hard. It was tough. So let me push it back to Christmas because I want to look good for Christmas. And then by that time, they're like, I'll just go ahead and start in January. Okay. I'm sure so many of y'all have done that, right? So a common mistake is like 1A, or I should say 6A and 6B is 6A is not creating a deadline. Okay. Not saying anything. So I just want to lose 20 pounds and that's it. Right. You're not saying when you want to do it. Okay. By when you want to do it. Okay. Or 6B is that it becomes this moving target and you just continue to move it because you had a bad month. Okay. When you create that deadline, you've got to let it stick there. You cannot move it. You got to let it stick. Okay. And then one of the biggest common mistakes that I see people make when they're creating their goals is they don't even know where they're starting from. They don't even know their true starting point. Okay. Now I know I've talked about this before, and I'm going to use this analogy until you start using it and you start telling everybody about this analogy. Okay. If you want to achieve something, okay, with your body, it is like a GPS. Okay. You open up your GPS and it finds your blue dot. Okay. That is your starting point. That GPS is telling you exactly where you are starting. Okay. Which we're going to talk about your starting point here in a second. So once you know your true starting point, okay, then it's really easy to create your goal, your final destination of where you want to be. And once you have those 2 points, then it's really easy to create a step-by-step plan to help you get there. Okay. But if all you have is your final destination, and I'm sure you've done it before. You opened up your GPS and it cannot find your blue dot because you don't have cell phone signal. Okay. You have no idea how to get to where you're going. Okay. You're lost. You're like, well, shit, I don't know where to go. Excuse my language. I don't know where to go. Okay. You need both. You need your starting point and you need your goals. Okay. So one of the biggest common mistakes I see is people not knowing their starting point when they're creating their goals.